Hello folks, it is time for some more hobby nightmares. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. It is Monday. Let's crack on with the week, shall we? Let's get on with it. With our first hobby nightmare of the day, it is from John. How's it going, dude? He says, Hi North, I have a few more hobby stories for you. Since several people call me John and you almost pronounced mine correctly, you can call me Jerome. Jerome? Yeah, we'll go with that. Plus, I'll buy you a beer when Exile Fest comes to the Netherlands, Amsterdam. I'll definitely be there. There are a lot of people campaigning to get Exile Fest on their neck of the woods, so I'll have to have a little look into it. The ending scenario for Exile Fest is that you guys organise one yourselves eventually, and then I just turn up without having to organise anything. That'd be awesome. I'll handle the UK stuff, but internationally. I'll do maybe one or two international ones, if and when I'm doing the next one. And then after that, I'll be like, yeah, organise your own, I'll be there, sort of a thing. Anyway, at least, if I know in time, I'll be there. I work in what we call essential services. Days off are relatively few and far between, and I have to request them well in advance. Unfortunately, there is no other option, as 24/7 staffing is essential for where I work, even if it's only to be available and jump up and work when needed. Doing nothing is sometimes boring. Watching your videos helps me on those shifts. The pay is good, thanks to many weekends and evening shifts, but even more importantly, I'm helping people. It's very rewarding work. That's cool, man. I had a friend who worked as basically a server engineer, right? And he was such a good engineer. He was there for 12-hour shifts, and the server worked fine. And 6 days out of 7. And even when there was an issue, it was an issue he could solve in like 5 minutes. So he ended up just bringing in his Xbox and PlayStation to work and stuff, and just sitting there. And this was ages ago. So this was when Mass Effect 3 was coming out. And he told me he played Mass Effect 3 literally at work. It's pretty cool. Anyway, story number 1. A video game must remain a video game. Back to my first name. How you did it last time is how it was pronounced during my sim racing career, when the race commentator was talking about me. There's still some room for improvement in the Owen part of my name. The OE is pronounced like the first part of the sound an owl makes, as in oh, ho, but without the ho at the end, of course, with an N after it. Give it a try. I might give you a second beer. Jahone? Alright, cool. I'll be honest with you, as an English person, whenever somebody says, no, my name's not pronounced that way, it's pronounced I'm like, dude, shut up. I'm going to call you Jim. I've done that so many times. When somebody's like, no, my name is yeah, okay. Right, Dave. Cheers, mate. Cool. And to be fair, it's like a ritual. When I was in university, I'd do this all the time. When I would literally, if I couldn't pronounce your name, I wouldn't work at pronouncing it, I'd give you another one, right? And if you just accepted that with a laugh, and you thought it was hilarious that I was calling you something else, and it just stuck with me and you, I knew you were my kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? You can take the mick out of yourself. You don't take life too seriously. You're my kind of guy. If you're the kind of person to get offended by that, and there were a few, I just wouldn't speak to them again. I wouldn't be nasty to them. I'd just if they were out on a night out, I'd avoid them. It's like, okay, I'll go over with these guys over here. That kind of a thing. So yeah, happened all the time. And it wasn't I wouldn't do it on purpose. It was literally, it was Scandinavian dudes with really weird names. And there was one Scandinavian girl called Tiril or something like that, and it had loads of letters in it, and I was like, right, Tabby, that's what your name is now. And she just laughed, because it was just one of those things. I'm English, dude. What are you gonna do? But I'd only ever do it with people who I actually couldn't pronounce their names. You know what I mean? Rather than it being awkward every single time. If your name was something like Alicia or something, I wasn't gonna be like, Annie. No, I wouldn't have done that. It's fine. Anyway, moving on. On to story 1 proper, which is about something you mention often. A hobby must remain a hobby. Quote unquote. A little background story beforehand, because it definitely does have an impact. I used to be a serious gaming addict, especially with World of Warcraft. Before I knew it, I was spending 30 plus hours a week on it and became 30 kilos heavier, until I realised I couldn't continue my life like this. I literally threw the game away and started exercising more. I also got a job and lost 15 kilos in no time. If you'd like to hear more about it, let me know. I continued gaming, but much less frequently. At some point, I discovered sim racing. After competing in a few short championships, I was ready for the real thing. To give an in-real-life comparison, I was doing well in Formula 3 and moved on to Formula 2, that kind of thing, where races are actually broadcast on YouTube. I'm attaching a photo of my first sim racing setup. It was before play seats were a thing. The subwoofer kept my pedals from sliding forwards under hard braking. Really? Well, isn't this interesting? We never get things like this in Hobby Nightmares. Let's have a look at this. Oh, guys, this is kind of awesome. If you're on your phone or something, I know a few of you'll be driving, so you pull over if you want and have a look. And that's such a ghetto setup. I love that. Look at your old monitor as well, dude. Oh, dude. Takes me back. Takes me back. God, now. That's awesome. I'll leave that there. With the setup to Formula 2, the skill level also of the other players also increased, so I had to practice more in my man cave. Besides sim racing, Warhammer also became an increasingly important hobby. I can build and paint models at the table with my wife while she's doing her own hobby. Sim racing started when I was single. Back then, I had plenty of time and often raced late into the night, especially after an evening shift. After a great first season in Formula 2, I was in contention for the championship until the final race. Our competition started attracting more and more other sim racers. YouTube also really started to take off, and several sim racers wanted their 5 minutes of fame during the races. This led to many more participants for the next season. I kept practicing as I'd practiced before. I didn't want to put in more hours. However, instead of qualifying fairly close to the front, I almost got a DNQ once. I did not qualify. The skill level of the other racers was much, much higher. I also noticed during practice sessions that they were spending many more hours on their practice. Some were spending more than 30 hours a week getting better at the game. Dude, this is a hobby thing that you all need to realise at some point. Every man's had to do this at one point or another, where they say, I did this with their Souls-like games, right? The sheer amount of time you need to put into beating certain bosses, you know, banging your head against the wall for several hours, it was not something I was prepared to do, because my work was stressful, right? I had other games I could play that didn't put me through that were still difficult, but didn't put me through that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Yeah, I'm not doing this. You know. And because I started on YouTube, you get jobless weirdos calling you weak for not being good at a particular video game. Let that sink in for a second. Mother's basement guy, who hasn't seen a breast since, you know, he was on the teat when he was younger. Calling somebody on YouTube a weirdo because they're not very good at Dark Souls 2. Like, what? Moving on. Those 30 plus hours brought back a flashback of my World of Warcraft days. Ah, yes, that too. That too. I never wanted to spend so much time on one hobby again. Besides, we were seriously considering starting a family, and I wanted to raise my children well and always be there for them. In my head, I couldn't really tell my girlfriend, you know, and I quote, I'm not available for the next 4 hours because I want to race other men in this virtual racing game, unquote. Because I could spend my Warhammer time with my girlfriend, and otherwise, I'd be stuck in limbo with sim racing. I made the wise decision to quit completely and dedicate more time to Warhammer. I have a second photo for you, my latest sim racing setup from way back when. Take a sip of tea or something else if you're reading this on a Friday evening before moving on to story 2. Alright, let me just do your second picture here. But dude, we've all been there. We've all had hobbies or events and things where you're just like, nah. This will take... That's cool, man. I like the setup. This will take far more time to enjoy than I'm willing to put in. And some dudes I've done that about Warhammer. They really have. Some dudes have done that about Warhammer too. They've gone, yeah, this will take me too much time to get good at this, or to get to the point where I'm really enjoying it and I'm doing it week in, week out, so I'm not going to do it, you know? Anyway, story number 2. Not all Belgians are friendly. Alrighty. On to story 2. Belgians have a reputation for being very friendly. Unfortunately, they're not always. This year we chose to take multiple day trips during our vacation instead of focusing on one area and staying overnight in a holiday park. One of the trips was to visit family in Antwerp. Well, distant relatives anyway. It were it were monkeys at the monkeys at the zoo. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Out of nowhere, it were the monkeys at the zoo. Where did that line come from? I'll read on. It were the monkeys at the zoo. And of course, the other animals too. I always spend a lot of time looking at reptiles. Right, so you went to the zoo. I thought you were being really like... How far are we into the video? Can I say this? Yeah, I thought you were being really racist about your family members there. Well, you're not, so it's fine. There's no context. It were the monkeys at the zoo. Like, what? Anyway, I always spend a lot of time looking at the reptiles. Actually, also an ancestor of us. They are incredibly beautiful creatures. A zoo never fills a full day, of course. And so we went into town. Our daughter loves visiting churches. Of course, that has to do with the fact that we're raising her as Christian, but there we go. But as you just read, we don't take everything literally, as it's written in the book that was made 2,000 years ago by some ancient dude. There's too much evidence for evolution. Anyway, I'm getting off track again. Every autistic person has a bit of ADHD and therefore struggles to stay on track. Speaking of the right track, finding the right path to the church was made difficult by the extensive sidewalk and road construction in Antwerp. We had to take a few side streets. There was indeed a Warhammer shop in one of those streets. They're always in side streets for some reason. My daughter immediately wanted to go in and make a mini model of the month, and that worked out quite well. Then I could browse around for scenery for our gaming table. Unfortunately, the mini of the month was already completely sold out. A table next to it had the My First Mini models ready to be cut from the sprue and to be built. My daughter immediately went in for it with great gusto, and grabbed the pliers and glue pot. They were almost snatched from her hands by the shop owner. They asked if it was her first model. Unfortunately, she's far too honest and told them no. She wasn't allowed to work on models. They said, and I quote, "If we have to give these models to everybody who comes in, they'll be gone in no time," unquote. Unfortunately, they couldn't make an exception for a child. Shortly after, we left the shop. Too bad for them. They did have some scenery that I liked, so I didn't buy anything because of this. Otherwise, we had a super fun day and had some great memories. However, on our next trip to Dusseldorf, I didn't even go to the Warhammer shop. So no model of the month. They don't deserve my money with this behaviour, which is happening in more and more shops that I've been in, both to me and to others, as I hear on your channel. There are more stories from me. This is all you're going to get for now, so you can share stories from others as well. Cheers, man. My sister came and visited over the weekend, because obviously things with my grandpa went south the other day and it wasn't great. So she visited, and her husband is getting into Warhammer, right? So, and they had their own hobby nightmares about their local Games Workshop store and going in and being dry humped to the point that they were like my brother-in-law was like, "Yeah, my wife's pregnant. Can she just sit down whilst I look at some models?" And the guy was like, "No, they're for painting marmies and things. They're for the painting club." And he was like, "Right, but there's nobody's sitting there right now, though, is there?" No, but they'll be in about half an hour." "Well, I'm not going to be that long. Can she sit there?" "No, because we don't know if they'll get here early." Dude. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're not human, and they're aliens who are trained to act like humans, but then, like you're speaking to an AI, the lack of empathy just like springs out every now and again, and just you're just reminded, okay, yeah, this isn't an actual human being. This is some weirdo. Anyway, moving on to our next hobby nightmare, which is from we'll call you Jim. He says, "Hello, Northern Exile. My name is going to be changed for this email, along with everybody else's for the sake of privacy." Okay. "You can just call me Ava." Alright. Not Jim. Ava. No problem. I'll call you Ava. "My dad paints Warhammer stuff and listens to your channel while he does, and so told me I should write to you about my hobby nightmare from 2022. Well, hopefully that he doesn't screw up his painting, because I'm reading his daughter's thingy. Hobby nightmare. "After listening to a few recent nightmares, as well as hearing everyone is quitting Magic, I figured I'd throw my own 2 cents into the hobby pond about why I'm also doing so. To preface, I played Magic the Gathering for years. Since junior high, really. My dad is into it, and so were some of his friends back in the day, as well as 2 of my 3 older brothers. We played Commander, which is a 4-player game mode, where everybody has a special card that acts as their deck's leader, quote-unquote. And it's usually what people build their decks around. And what my drinking friends call a conventionally attractive girl, unquote-unquote. Dude, which one of your friends called you that? Yeah, you're a conventionally attractive girl. Tell me you're never getting laid without telling me you're never getting laid. Though I don't really get it, as I think I'm not all that." Okay. But that's not just me gassing myself up, it is important to the story. Also, sorry if it doesn't make sense, I'll try and explain Magic terms along the way, but I might space some kind of stuff out, so I do apologise if that happens. No problem, man. Are you one of these people who struggles with compliments? Right? I'm that kind of dude. Like, I struggle with that stuff all the time. My self-confidence is really low in terms of, like, my looks and stuff. But I make up for it with, like, being outwards and, like, talking to people and things. But there are many times where I catch myself in the mirror and I'm like, ugh. But then you'll get other people going, "Yeah, dude, like, you're like, you know, you're decent looking, you're this and that." And I had one dude at Exile Fest come up to me and be like, "I'm never taking..." He said it in a nice way. He said, "Do you know you do, like, advice and, like, you know, going out and, like, meeting women and stuff, like, every now and again?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm never taking advice from you ever again." I'm like, "Why?" He says, "I didn't know you looked like that." I was like, "What do you mean?" What do you mean? Dude, I'm not like Charlton Heston walking around. Jesus Christ, chill. But, like, I don't know how to react to that either. Like, so, yeah. Conventionally attractive girl. Alright, fair enough. Fair dues. It is weird. And plus, I don't, like... As a dude, I don't get it as often as probably you do, to be fair. Being a girl in the hobby, I assume, or a woman in the hobby, I assume you'll be getting a lot more comments than I would, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, moving on. Again, this was back in 2022 in October. I've never taken Magic super seriously. I'm a very casual player, and really only played with friends for a long time. But moving out of my parents' house for college, it made it difficult to find games. I was in my hometown for so long, and now putting myself out there into the bigger world. It was a whole different ballpark. I felt detached and bored. All of my friends were hours away, and I had nobody in this new area. All I was really doing at that time was reading lore for Warhammer and school. I liked the stories and lore videos on YouTube, but I just couldn't get into the modelling side of things. And it was Commander... I've moved on there. That's when I first saw a post online talking about Magic the Gathering and Warhammer collaboration. My dad would be thrilled to hear about that, as he was engulfed in the lore as I was. And it was Commander-sized decks too. I pre-ordered the Imperium deck because, unlike my Xenos-loving father, I'm all for humanity. Dude, that's like the reverse of what's normal. Normally it's the dad who likes Space Marines and the daughter's going to be into the bugs, but anyway, moving on. In preparation, I finally figured it was time to stop finding excuses and go find myself a game store to play Magic in. As what's the point of a new deck if it just sat on a shelf gathering dust? I'm a very outgoing, some would say aggressive individual, so I spent a solid 2 hours or so going through reviews of game stores near me on the Magic the Gathering days to see what fit me the best. I settled on one not too far from my dorm, and the following Thursday I made my way there with my old Magic deck. I played some games and generally had a good time. The store was pretty big and popular too. The people I met there were kind, and the store manager seemed like a really decent dude. The talk of tonight was the tournament a manager and his employees were setting up for the new Warhammer pre-made decks. One guy I was playing with, named Todd, got me to spend $20 for the sign-up. They asked for my name and the deck I was going to use. Though the manager emphasised this was all in good fun and just a casual game. The prize for this tournament was a $50 store credit coupon and a new Warhammer deck of the winner's choosing between the 4 that had released. Those Warhammer decks individually costed like $80. Though we didn't expect to win. By this time most of everyone's decks were coming in, and by the next week so would mine. I was really excited to play it. That's cool, man. Right, the next week rolled around and my Amazon package containing the deck came in. The rules of the tournament were simple. You had to choose one of the 4 Warhammer decks to run between Chaos, Imperium, Necrons and Tyranids, with modifications allowed so long as they didn't break the decks to be overpowered. When decks like this came out, they are called precons and are generally mid to low ranged in how strong or how fast they are. General consensus for the first few days was that they were pretty good for precons and solid all round decks. The Necrons, however, were the best out of the 4. Not by a wide margin, but with new stuff there's always going to be the best out of a group. I got Imperium and in the Discord everybody was buzzing. Come that weekend, Friday to Saturday, instead of the Thursday, the tournament would happen. Okay. I decided, since the tournament was at 3 and my class on Friday were done around 12, I'd make a day of it. Going early downtown, I checked stuff out and maybe eat lunch beforehand. I was still pretty new to the area despite having lived there for almost 2 months and hadn't really travelled beyond campus. After walking around a bit, it was around 2 PM. The tournament was beginning at 3, so I figured I should probably eat. There was a Hawaiian barbecue place not far from the store, so I figured why not? I do like chicken. North, sorry to take so long, but here is where the nightmare of the day truly starts. I walk in and get my food, and I notice a stench coming from the corner of this rather small restaurant. Despite the cook's best efforts to fill the restaurant with fumes of chicken and pork, this beast of a man overpowered it. Sitting in the corner were 2 individuals. One skinny man with a long trench coat, long greasy hair and red sunglasses, and next to him was what my dad would describe as Nurgle's Chosen, a giant sack of flesh with 2 small Pokemon t-shirts that showed off his stomach and a hairy belly button, and what was clearly drenched in sweat armpits and a quintuple chin that would make Donald Trump jealous. Now, I know I shouldn't make fun of these dudes' appearances without getting to know them, but these 2 are absolute dickheads, so I really don't have to hold back, and you'll see why later. I'll call them Nurgle's wife and Twig, because fuck 'em. And after ordering, I sit on the opposite side of the restaurant, even though it doesn't help keep the stench away. I would love to say everyone else in the area was also trying not to gag, but I literally refused to look up from my phone to check, just trying to distract myself with what was going on in my hand. When my order was called out, I did it. I made the mistake of locking eyes with Gorlock the Destroyer of all chairs. He's changed his name. Nurgle's wife is who you locked the eyes with. Yeah, okay, cool. She even says, sorry, wrong name, but fuck him. He was just staring at me as if waiting for me to look back, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable. I quickly got my food from the front and asked for it to go, please. I was not about to have the smell ruin my meal, though I could feel my appetite fading as soon as I stepped foot in that place. As I grabbed it and headed towards the plastic ware for the fork and bits like that, that's when it happened. That scene in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex is slowly lumbering towards the car and the puddle shakes. I was living it. Not really, but making a beeline for me was Nurgle's wife. I turned around to see the wall of flesh that was easily a few inches taller than me. I'm 5'2", so basically everybody is taller than me, but 6 foot had never looked so unattractive. And I nearly vomited. He was like a candle scented as garbage juice. Here's what I could remember through what I felt like passing out, so it was a bit hazy. Nurgle. Hey, what's up? My name's Nurgle's wife. What's yours? Me. Ava, I'm sorry, I'm in kind of a hurry. I've got to eat this. Nurgle, I was just wondering if I could get your number. Well, do you know what? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Good for him for shooting his shot. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the worst she's going to say? No? Watch Ava vomit on him now and be sick. We'll see. Gotta commend the guy for approaching a girl. Dude, right, okay, you're cool. I like this person. Right, yeah, I was expecting you to be like, ew, this guy. No. You're right, Ava. You are completely right. Gotta commend the guy for being able to approach a girl. Exactly. But I am now imagining a lot of... If we do have single women who watch Hobby Nightmares, they're thinking, why is it always this guy who has the guts to approach and not, like, you know, the decent-looking dude? Not even the good-looking dude. The 6 out of 10 dude who looks like he's wearing nice clothes, smells nice, and has a good job. Why can't it be that guy approaching me? So we can just go out for a coffee and I can see if I like him or not, that kind of a thing. It's always like a big misnomer that they're waiting for Henry Cavill to walk in. They're not, dude. Like, most of them are waiting to be approached by normal-looking dudes who don't look like they're going to turn him into a fucking pretzel. Anyway. Gotta commend the guy for approaching a girl. Most of my male friends say they're too scared to, and I call them pussies for it. That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong, right? Okay. There is a thing called pretty girl privilege. And it is a thing, right? Said it before in Hobby Nightmares, and I'll say it again. I'm really sorry, Ava, but in this hobby, most of the dudes you meet will probably want to date you or have sex with you, right? Most of the girls who meet a dude will not want to have sex with him or take him out or go out with him whatsoever, right? It's the complete opposite. So the issue you have with dudes approaching you, imagine the complete opposite issue, right? Nobody approaches you because you're a dude and no one cares about you. The world doesn't care about you, wants you to die in the gutter, right? And no one will bat an eyelid if you do. Okay. And now, here, all the horror stories of women, like, shouting at a dude, like, shouting grape and things like that. You know, like, making you feel like a real weirdo for approaching them in public and maybe even getting their phone out to record you. Say, look, this creep just approached me whilst I was at the bar. That kind of stuff. We've all seen it happen, you know? Yeah, that's why dudes don't approach. That's why they don't, right? Best thing to do, say all the time if you're a young lady and you're in the hobby, best thing to do is to play with that guy. Play the game with that guy, right? And flirt. Don't do it with anybody else, right? That's the problem, right? If you're naturally quite flirty, try and tone it down with everybody but him. Give him special treatment, right? And if he doesn't get it, then just ask him out. And say, hey, do you want to go grab a drink after this? Because normal dudes will be like, probably won't approach you. Hobby dudes will never approach you. Because number one, they're there to have fun in their hobby. They may not want to bother you because you're also there to have fun in your hobby, right? And they don't want to make you feel uncomfortable because your hobby is your refuge. It's your happy space, right? So if you're in a store and you turn a guy down, you've got to go back to that store again, right? Do you know what I mean? So you know fairly certainly that if you're a decent-looking girl and this guy's single, he's going to say yes to taking you out for a drink, right? So because you've got that power, because you've got that, maybe you should be the one saying, hey, do you want to go for a drink? If everything else fails. But most dudes will pick up on it. Most dudes, if you flirt with them, you know, it doesn't matter. And it's kind of bullshit how people say nerds don't have a radar. They do. Every man has one. Your hormones go. Every man has one. Your dick kind of goes, hey, what's going on up in here? Huh. I like her. Like that kind of thing. Like your body tells you when you're being flirted with. It just does. I've seen some near asexual motherfuckers like literally go, dude, I think she likes me. And I'm like, yeah, I think she does too, man. You should ask her for a number, right? It's sixth sense, dude. Sixth sense. So yeah, flirt. Don't be outrageous with it, but make sure he knows, right? Like I had one time in Games Workshop, I wasn't working there. This is when I was a customer, and I was playing a game with this girl, and I think I killed a hive tyrant or something. And I said, oh, I'm really sorry about that. And she leant over the table and said, you will be. right? And just looked me straight in the eye, and I gotta be honest, my dick went when it did like a thing, you know, like, so yeah, it happens. It happens, right? So that's what you should do. I mean, don't do exactly what I just said, but you know what I'm saying. Let them know, dudes. Let them know that you're interested. Where was I? Oh yeah, reading Hobby Nightmare. Sorry, getting lost in memories. Alright. Gotta commend the guy for approaching a girl. Most of my friends say that they're too scared, and I call them pussies for it. If this guy wasn't the spawn of Mortarion, maybe I'd have even considered it. And I had about 40 minutes to eat before the tournament. But this is before the game, so I'm still being polite and not knowing what was coming. Sorry, no, I don't just give my number out to strangers. Nurgle said, oh, Instagram then? Snapchat? Somebody as curvy as you has got to have one of those. Ew. Ew. Number one, either you said the wrong thing. You don't say I don't give my number out. You be honest with them. Say, listen, I'm not interested today. Just say, look, I'm not interested in being in anything romantic right now. So no, I'm not gonna. Right, and then you just say that. Don't say it about him personally. You say, I'm sorry, right now I'm not looking for anything romantic. I'm off the market for that. And if he says, are you single? Go, technically, yeah, but like I'm not looking for that. And that's it. That's it. But don't say, sorry, don't give my number out, because what's he gonna say? Exactly what he did say. Instagram, Snapchat. Somebody as curvy as you has got to have one of those. Right? Me. No, sorry. I am running late and I've really got to be going. Thank you, though. I quickly got out of there, sneaking by and doing my best to not run out the door. I eat my food, but end up tossing most of it and just drink water before heading into the store. This place is cool, but they really went all out. Moving their display cabinets and shelves to the basement and having rows of tables for the 50 or so players, all numbered, so players knew where to sit and who they were facing. It wasn't anything official, but the effort they put in was really well worth it. I go to see which table I'm at, and I'm playing against Todd at table 4. Todd's the one who got me to sign up for the tournament in the first place, but we didn't get to pick our opponents, so it's just lucky, I guess. The other two were names I didn't know. I really didn't know anybody, so it wasn't a big deal. Him and I sat down, and he is playing Tyranids whilst I am playing, of course, the Imperium. According to the manager, he organises everybody and the decks they will be playing to try spreading out which decks played which to keep it different. Okay, never mind. Moving on. Snap duplicate decks didn't face each other, at least in the first round. That makes sense. The guy on our table was playing the Chaos deck. Pete is what I'll call him, and he seemed nice enough. Dude, have you ever met a nasty Pete? I've never met an unpleasant Pete. They've all been nice. It's like a nice guy name. As the time came close to starting, I smelt it before I saw it. Nurgle's wife and Twig were making their way towards their tables. Luckily, Twig was our first opponent, not Nurgle's wife. Thank every god except Nurgle. He slinked over to our table, and I could tell he did not like me for rejecting his friend. But he didn't say anything about it whilst taking out his Necron deck. The winner would be decided in a best-of-1 system. Whoever won the first round would move on, and the rest would be put in the loser's bracket. We ran clockwise to Pete in turn order. As we began, I have to make it clear I have no idea what this Imperium deck does mechanically other than make a soldier unit and smack everybody else. I look over the deck before today but hadn't played it in any actual game. Anyway, my opening hand is decent with one good card. I smiled and cleared a turn 1 Soul Ring. In Magic, you can use land as mana. Cool. That's the currency in the game, and the Soul Ring costs 1 mana, but it can be used to create 2 mana. It's a great card, and is a standard in every precon. I just happened to get lucky with mine turn 1. Twig looks at me and goes, "Who cut your deck?" he says. Cutting is the process after shuffling your deck that you have somebody else split it in half and put the bottom on the top to guarantee any cheating like cards stacking can't happen. I said, well, Todd did. In the most deadpan, serious expression, an annoyed Twig says, yeah, sure, you're the threat now. Threat is a term used when somebody is obviously curb-stomping the rest of the table and needs to be stopped by everybody else working together so the threat does not win. Dude, if you're playing a game that has a term like that, stop playing the game. Do you know what I mean? If you're playing a game that has a term where you now all have to gang up on that one person, it's awful. Get me out of here. I explain this because targeting the main threat at the table is not bullying. It's a common thing even in casual games of Magic. Yeah, that's why I don't play it. I said, yeah, alright man, try me. Look, good for you. Fair enough. The game progresses as normal, though I was clearly being playful and joking around. Twig does target me a bit, but it's clear with the building board that Twig and his Necrons are going to run away with the game if we don't stop him. Todd and Pete discuss what to do, whilst I also plan my own thing. I have a very good card on the field called Golden Throne. It's the Emperor sitting on the Golden Throne, and if I sacrifice the card, I can be at 1 life instead of losing the game. Well, that's cool. That's basically what the Golden Throne does too. Let me take a quick sip of tea. It's one thing you didn't put in your hobby nightmare. Allow me to take a sip of tea. So now I'm dying of thirst, and it's all your fault. No, moving on. So theoretically, if somebody does a game-ending move, I can live and have a chance to retaliate. It's the best card in the deck, I think. By now, we've all come to the general consensus to take down Twig first, and we begin doing so, dismantling his creature cards and equipment one by one and slowly chipping his life away. During this, Twig basically explodes on Pete and myself, using everything he can to take us down. Todd, being last at this point, was the only non-threat on the board, so Twig didn't even bother with him. But I did. Cheekily swinging my Space Marine cards a little bit more at Todd than at Twig. Finally, Twig goes down after 2 grueling rounds of warfare. Long drawn-out bloody battles is what Warhammer was made for. Twig claimed we were all a bit of sheep for just going along with Todd's plan, who clearly could now win due to our board states. I should have called him a sore loser, but just shrugged him off, and luckily, due to my antics, I was pretty even with Todd and Pete, and was now last. Todd foolishly went for me, while Pete took him out entirely, knocking Todd into the loser's bracket. Pete had a good game plan, and actually almost killed me, if not for the Golden Throne. Sacrificing it, I gained 1 life and didn't lose the game, instead swinging at him and taking the first round. I was pretty surprised, as I suck at Magic generally, but with everybody on the same playing field, deck power-wise, I guess I'm just a god. Dude. Just, calm your tits. Calm down. Just kidding, no. I got really lucky with how the alliance broke down after Twig's elimination, and of course the Golden Throne card. Pete was sent off after we all shook hands, except Twig, who wouldn't shake mine. Fair enough. Okay, let's what did he say? Twig said, "Told you both she was a threat with that 1 soul ring." Todd, "Yeah, you're right, dude. That soul ring I blew up turn 6 really mattered when Pete handed her the win." Todd was very obviously joking. Him and Pete were friends, and I laughed it off, while Twig went towards another area of the store, seemingly pretty upset. I moved on to the next round. My opponents are Jim, Frank, and, with tears in my eyes, I saw him, Nurgle's wife, sitting across from me. Gonna be honest, I legitimately considered leaving at that moment and forfeiting the entire tournament, but I spent a whole $20 to be here, and I wasn't about to quit now. That's such a student thing to say. $20? I'm gonna be there all day. I'm gonna eat all your sandwiches as well. You're gonna have all of your sandwiches, all of your free drink. I'm having all of that. Get my money's worth. I had to breathe through my mouth the entire time. What made it worse was Frank was next to me and was clearly uncomfortable by me and Nurgle's mouth breathing. Though I didn't sound nearly as loud as the air vent over there. Everybody explained their decks. Jim, who was also on the table, was Imperium like me, and Frank, who was another player at the table, was Tyranids, like Twig. Nurgle was playing Necrons. He said his deck was slightly modified, as per the tournament rules. He and anybody else could do this within reason. If I were doing this in hindsight, I wouldn't let anybody modify the decks and just play with the raw precons. Turn 1 was pretty rough. Nurgle's wife had that oh so precious soul ring that his friend was complaining about that I had gotten in the last round. Turn 1 soul ring wasn't game ending like Twig treated it as, but Nurgle was a different breed. By turn 5, he had some really good cards, not on the Necron deck at all. He had modified his deck well enough that it worked perfectly. Now, I'm not really an arsehole, and I won't be like Twig and ask to cut Nurgle's deck so card stacking or all his good stuff on top couldn't happen. But god damn it, I swear he did not have anyone to do it for him. God knows I didn't want to get my hands anywhere near his plague-induced deck. But I also could just be misremembering, as this was nearly 3 years ago. This matters because last round we went back and forth for multiple turns. It was barely turn 5, and Nurgle was clearly in the lead. With nothing built up on anybody else's board, we really couldn't stall him for that long. After another round, though I wouldn't ask who cut his deck, I did call over one of the employees who was refereeing the tournament, asking him about the rules and how modified our decks could be, pointing towards, quite frankly, the insane board state Nurgle's wife had. I'd love to say Nurgle muttered this under his breath with a giant ass mouth, like that was his lowest tone, was that of a boom mic. He nudged poor Jim, who was next to him, with his greasy elbow. Nurgle said, "Course, as soon as the bitch comes out of the kitchen, she can't comprehend not being good at something. Should have stuck to cooking instead, huh?" Me and the employee stood there in shock, while he got his laugh in. It wasn't a laugh, more like a grunt, whilst he was taking his shit. Dude, all I'm thinking of is that his laugh's like, and that's just, just this diarrhea sound. Anyway, I grew up with 3 brothers and played plenty of Call of Duty. I've been in the trenches of gamer sexism, like that one "I've seen things you wouldn't believe" Doctor Who meme. So I retorted without hesitation. The "I've seen things you wouldn't believe", are you joking there? Is that a Doctor Who meme? It's not, it's a Blade Runner meme. How dare you? How dare you? Dude, I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't fucking stand Doctor Who. I can't. I just can't. Everything about it just makes me go, ugh. Even the older stuff, I don't mean like when I was gone woke, I don't mean that. I mean, even the older stuff, I'm like, ugh. Who is this for? Who is this for? Like, I don't know. It's for your little sister. That's what it's for. That's what Doctor Who's for. It's for your little sister. Anyway, so I retorted without hesitation. Me. Well, at least I have a kitchen to go to. What? At least I have a kitchen to go to the gym once in a while. Sorry, at least dude, I fucked that up. I'm sorry. I fucked that up. That's north. I'm sorry. Alright. Me. At least I leave the kitchen to go to the gym every once in a while. What are you, married to your fridge? It's probably the only thing that can stand you. Not that you would understand. You don't do much standing to begin with. Holy shit. Dude. Just put his balls in your purse already? What the fuck? The employee, poor guy, was just very eager to get out of that situation. He told us both to calm down and said that due to it being round 2, we just have to play on. Nurgle's wife was red with anger. It was hard to tell though, since the man was looking like a cherry about to burst even sitting down. Obviously, we all lost, and Nurgle's wife moved on to the next round. Before we could all pack up, he just had to get the last word in. Nurgle said, "Next time stay in your lane, if you don't want to run into the big dogs." Do you know when? I've said it before and I'll say it again, right? Now, I don't like this guy. This guy is a dick. But there is such a thing as being such an arsehole that you cross over from being an arsehole to being kind of endearing. I still don't like you, and I don't want you around me or the people that I like. But it's still funny. It's still... You want to run with the big dogs. The only way that could have been any better is if he like Bron Breaker style, barked at you. That would have been amazing. I just rolled my eyes. Luckily, we were all moved to the losers bracket just before the cut-off to be allowed in. My next rounds, I got back into the tournament by winning a round against 3 random, very nice people, but nothing significant really happened. The miracle was me winning 2 games in a tournament. Twig had also gotten back into the tournament from the losers bracket. It was almost time for the store to close, so that ended day 1 of what was supposed to be a casual tournament, and had now turned into a crusade by me and Pete, who had also come back in. Granted, I was more so angry with the big bad man, and Pete was just along for the ride. Sadly, Todd was knocked out entirely by somebody else, but said he'd come back and watch mine and Pete's next few games, as it was the next weekend. The next day, I skip along to get food beforehand to avoid accidentally seeing Gorlock there before the tournament. My first round back in the tournament, and that is it. No do-overs. My luck was surely going to run out, and of course it did, as both Nurgle and Twig were both sitting across from me. Pete was not on the same table, and Todd looked visibly worried. It was a 4-player game, but it felt more like a 2v1v1. Nurgle had the biggest shit-eating grin on his face as I sat down. Nurgle said, "I'm surprised you got back in. How many hand jobs did the manager make you give him to let you in?" Dude. Twig was snickering, and honestly, I should have gone to the manager and explained his behaviour, but fuck that, I'm going to ruin his game, and if I can be a bit petty. Even if I lose, I can make sure he does too, so we can't win the whole tournament. And I didn't expect to win anyways, so it didn't really matter as much to me. I said, "Okay, how many did you give yourself before you came up with that god-awful line thinking it was good? Surely write better material, you're bombing on stage." Not my best comeback, but fuck this guy and whatever he said, I was going to keep firing back. I don't really care at this point. Dude, I'm kind of the same. Do you know a lot of people in these hobby nightmares? They say, "Well, that's bullshit. Nobody could think that up on the spot." Dude, I know you can, because I do. Like, if I get a really annoyed, I become very good at saying really insulting things very quickly. I don't know why. My brain just shuts off and it comes out my mouth. It is a thing that happens. Like, this can happen to you. Like, you just lose all nervousness because you're just going for it, and your adrenaline takes over, and like it sort of short circuits your brain, and all of this really, really vile stuff that really cuts to the quick, like really cuts them, comes straight out your mouth. It jumps boom, like straight out. It very rarely happens with me. You have to be pushed very far, but it does happen at times. Maybe like once every year or two, like I'll meet somebody in real life who's such a fucking chode, such an idiot, that I just snap. They push me and push me and push me and push me, and then I go, "Okay, well, you wanted your little moment, here's your little moment," and you just go back at them. When I have time to think about these things, that's when I stumble. That's when that's when I can't get my words out. But people do this all the time. Like, they will literally just be so angry that they'll come back with these comebacks, and you go, "Where the hell did that come from?" And they're like, "I don't know. I don't know." Anyway, I'm sure it's all happened to you guys as well, in real life. The game starts, and I know for a fact my other opponent, I'll call him Oscar, cut all our decks. He clearly disliked the stench Roticus over there exuded, and I like to think we were kindred spirits in that moment, hell-bent on getting this greater demon off of our table. Right from the get-go, Nurgle's wife is hampered. He doesn't get good draws, luckily, and it gives me time to build up a bit. I'm very obviously taking shots at Nurgle's wife at this point, though Twig and Nurgle's wife are very obviously targeting only me. Twig said, and I quote, "You'll be begging for his number after this." I love this. I nearly pissed myself laughing. We paused the game mid-Twig's turn because I couldn't stop myself. Me, this pig? The guy who hasn't showered in weeks? I'd rather fucking die. Oh my god. Nurgle, Just another common whore, Twig. Let it go. She just won't be able to see what I'm already packing later tonight. Dude. Me. If it isn't a foot-long sandwich up your fat folds you've packed, because I know a chode like you can't even see down there anymore. That pissed him off. I actually think a lot of stuff pissed him off, but there we go. Especially because I couldn't stop laughing until his stench choked me out of it into a cough. He proceeded with his turn, and after a few turns of going back and forth, I had done it. Twig and Nurgle's wife brought me down, but I did the same with them. Taking Nurgle's wife out on my turn, then on the next. Next, Twig tried, but I played my golden throne once again, saving me. Oscar then took me and Twig out on his turn and won the game rather easily, knocking all three of us out, and I couldn't be happier to lose a game of Magic the Gathering in my life. The smug look on Twig's face when I used the golden throne just so he couldn't take me out himself was priceless. The duo of Nurgle and Twig were finally defeated, but not by me, alas. Nurgle said, "You girls always go for the bad boys when perfectly nice men like us are out there. Good luck getting a date with somebody half as good at magic as we are, whore." Okay. Alright, this is the thing. There's going to be a lot of dudes out there who are calling bullshit. There are going to be a lot of dudes out there who are calling nonsense on this. I implore you not to. I absolutely implore you not to. Alright. We very rarely have hobby nightmares like this on the channel. Like, we don't really get them. We don't really get women writing in and saying what things can go on because they're frightened of the reception they'll get in the comments, right? Anybody in the comments who's worked in the hobby will tell you that this does happen. It doesn't always happen with the violence of language, as we're saying here, right? But the general attitude of, you know, you must have jerked somebody off to get into the tournament. You know, everyone's giving you preferential treatment because you've got a nice pair of tits. Stuff like that happens all the time. Now, do not get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. I'm fully aware that if you're an attractive woman in the nerd space, you are kind of, in certain ways, living life on easy mode. There'll be a lot of people who will bend over backwards to accommodate you. I get it, right? But on the flip side, there is a double-edged sword to that, right? You will get a lot of people who, again, will give you preferential treatment because you've got a nice pair of tits when you just want to play a bit of Warhammer. No one ever notices that side of it. They always go, well, she's getting preferential treatment. Dude, what if she doesn't want it? Have you ever thought of that? For every streamer girl that's out there going, oh, whoopsie, dropped my pencil again, and getting preferential treatment at like nerd things and knowing full well what they're doing, right? There's 9 other women who are going, will you just not do that? Can you just treat me as like a normal person? And then, do you know what? If you got a bit of rizz about you, or you can talk to me, I might find you attractive. Just saying. Like, there's nothing better to like a hobbyist girl than having a semi-attractive dude smash the shit out of them at Warhammer and give them no mercy. Not be nasty about it. Have fun, have a smile on your face, but play for blood. Like, go for them, right? You know what I mean? Treat them as you treat everybody else. Because you know what it shows, dudes? It shows you don't care how they think about you. You're just there to have a good time. And to make them have a good time, too. It's the most attractive thing you can do. Treat them like one of your dudes. It's like, I don't give a shit if she's got a nice pair of tits. She's playing Tyranids, and I'm playing the Emperor's Finest, and I'm going to grind her into the fucking dust. She's playing filth, and I'll treat her as such, right? That's what you do. You have fun, you have some banter, you have a laugh back and forth, and you know what? By the end of that game, if you've gone in there and you're all like a 5 out of 10, but you're dressed nicely, you smell nice, and you've had a good bit of banter back and forth, you're now at least a 7 to her. You're now at least worth going on a date with. You know what I mean? And if you pop that question, if she's single, she'd probably say yes. Right? If she's also single. You know what I Especially if you don't do it there and then. If you do it like quite quietly and go, hey, like no pressure or anything like that. Would you like to go for a drink afterwards? And if she says no, say, hey, no problem at all. No problem at all. Listen, I'm not going to be one of these guys who like is a dick about it. Absolutely, dude. You do you. And then you walk off. Right? Nothing's worth your dignity, lads. Like losing your shit like this. It just, yeah. This guy's no dignity left. Like all of his dignity is gone, absolutely gone. And dudes like this always blame. They always say like you always go for bad boys, and then when a good man comes along, you know, again, there's no smoke without fire. That can and does happen. True. Yeah, but at the same time, you're using that bit of evidence to sidestep all responsibility. You know what I'm saying? And you're saying, hey, it's not me. It's not me and my fat folds. It's not me and my smell. It's not me and my attitude or my misogyny. It's none of that stuff. No. You see, what it is it's your fault for liking men with strong arms and an attitude and who look like James Dean. That's the problem. Now that's the problem. Right? Do you know why bad boys are like? Because women like strength, dude. If they've got a bad boy on their arm and somebody says something to him on the street, that bad boy's going to go over and nut the guy in the fucking jaw. What are you going to do? Throw your little magic cards at him? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can acknowledge that these things go on. Yeah, a lot of women do, like, go for bad boys and they don't give chances to decent dudes. But I fucking hate it when a dickhead uses that excuse because you're not a decent dude. I know decent dudes don't get chances with women. And I do everything that I can to help them out. I know loads of dudes like that. And the amount of dudes who aren't like that, who are actual dickheads, you go, well, you just don't like nice guys like me. Dude, you're not a nice guy. You're a prick. That's the issue. That's the issue. Them liking bad boys isn't the issue. Right? What you're really upset about is that you're also a dickhead, you're also a bad boy, and she doesn't like you, because instead of just being a bad boy you can protect her, you're a bit of a doughy mess. That's the issue. And moving on. Me, what was that about the kitchen? I think it's calling you. We both know the gym isn't. Jesus Christ. I skipped off before he could retort and go to watch Pete's game. The rest of the tournament was pretty normal. Some dude won with Tyranids, and Pete got 4th place, I think. Dude, that's gone on for so long, my bloody music's finished. Staying power. He played in the final round that night, but he got wiped out first, if I'm remembering correctly. Nurgle's wife and Twig would also stay, but be on the opposite ends of the room from me, shooting me glares constantly. Overall, the tournament was just not that enjoyable. I sort of just realised maybe the hobby wasn't for me. I rarely play nowadays and don't actively participate in any groups for it. I'd run into rude nerds who think they knew better than me, but I'd always just considered them losers. Considering it was my second week in that game store, and after a break, I took it as a sign to hang up the champion belt of rejecting Nurgle's blessing and moving on to life and focusing on school. I will be shocked when my dad calls after you reading this and saying, you swore far too much if you read this out. I wouldn't blame you if you don't, but it's pretty long. Thanks for letting me describe my clearly stellar love life and breakup with magic. Have a good one. Well, cheers. That was interesting. That was a very, very, very interesting Hobby Nightmare. So, yeah, thank you very much for sending it in. I was going to read 3 out today, but we're nearly an hour in, or we are an hour in, so I'm going to have to leave it there. But, yeah, what do you guys think of that situation? Is that something that you've come across before? Ladies who are in the hobby, is this something you've come across before? Let me know in the comment section down below. I will speak to you very, very soon for some more Hobby Nightmares. I'll be back tomorrow with some more 40k Rantage, where we're going to discuss the characters that you think Games Workshop has ruined with their writing. Should be spicy. See you then. Have a good one. Bye now.